Andre Ward's victory over Sergey Kovalev was definitely and definitively not a robbery. And anybody who is of an objective, rational, logical, dispassionate mindset will absolutely agree with that. Those people who are not of a rational, logical, objective mindset, and they're coming from a place of emotionalism and extreme bias, they're going to disagree with what I just said. But hey, that's them. And as I said before, if you had Sergey Kovalev winning the fight, I've got no issue with that whatsoever. This was a fight in which the majority of rounds were very close and therefore open to interpretation. So if you gave the majority of those swing rounds to Kovalev, in my mind, that's perfectly reasonable. But on the flip side of that, you also have to know and accept and appreciate that it's perfectly reasonable for other people to give a lot of those swing rounds to Andre Ward. This is not about me saying that Ward definitely won the fight or Kovalev definitely won the fight. It's not about that. It's about me saying what the facts support, which is that it was a very close fight with the majority of rounds being open to interpretation because they were so close. And therefore, the fight wasn't a robbery. For those of you who are logical, I'm going to show you exactly why the Andre Ward Kovalev decision was not a robbery. And I'm going to do so by giving you an example of a fight which was a robbery and comparing the circumstances and the scores and the CompuBox numbers between that fight and the Ward Kovalev fight. Now, as you can see on screen, this was my post-fight video for the Manny Pacquiao-Tim Bradley first fight. And in this video, feel free to watch it if you want to confirm that what I'm about to tell you is true. In this video, I said that it was a complete robbery, that Manny Pacquiao clearly won the fight, and that I scored it, I think, 118 to 113 for Pacquiao. So I had Pacquiao winning the fight by a wide margin. I could not make any case for Tim Bradley winning the fight. Why? Because when I watched the fight, my eyes told me, from what I saw from round to round, my eyes told me that Pacquiao was landing far more punches than Bradley in virtually every round. That's what my eyes told me. This is way before I checked any CompuBox numbers. My eyes told me that. My eyes also told me that neither fighter was landing that many clean punches throughout the fight. So it wasn't a case of, okay, Pacquiao was landing a lot more, but Bradley was landing by far the cleaner punches, and so therefore I could make a case for certain rounds going to Bradley. No, that's not what I saw. I saw neither guy landing particularly clean shots, but out of the punches that were being landed, Pacquiao was landing far more of them. So in the post-fight video, and I did a couple of videos actually, because a lot of people started attacking me for saying that this Pacquiao-Bradley first fight was a robbery. You know, for people, for whatever reason, people who are not of sound mind wanted to try to tell me that the fight wasn't a robbery. It was a robbery. Now, when I eventually did get around to looking at the CompuBox numbers, as you can see on screen right here, the CompuBox numbers confirmed what my eyes had told me, that Pacquiao outlanded Bradley in virtually every round, if not indeed every round, not by a small margin, but by a very wide margin. You look at the final punch totals for the Bradley Pacquiao fight in terms of punches landed. Pacquiao landed 253 punches throughout the course of the fight. Bradley only landed 159 punches. So Pacquiao landed nearly 100 more punches than Tim Bradley over the course of 12 rounds. Now, obviously, CompuBox cannot be used to score a fight, or else it would be used to score a fight, but it's not in professional boxing, because CompuBox doesn't take into account the quality of the punches. And also, CompuBox, just like with judges, is open to human error. Sometimes with CompuBox, they will count punches which didn't land, and sometimes they will miss punches that did land. A classic example actually was in the Ward-Kovalev fight. Jim Lampley and Max Kellerman said that Kovalev had landed a big right hand on Andre Ward at the end of the 10th round. Both of them said that it had landed. And then you look at the instant replay at the end of the 10th round and the punch clearly missed. So that's Jim Lampley and Max Kellerman at ringside calling a punch that landed when it didn't land. That can also happen to judges. That can also happen to the CompuBox guys from time to time. So you have to bear that in mind. You have to factor in human error. But be that as it may, when the punch totals are so massively different as they were here for Pacquiao and Bradley, I mean, 253 punches landed to 159 is a huge difference. So that just corroborates what my eyes told me. I didn't need to look at CompuBox, obviously, to know what I'd seen, but there it is. Now, on top of that, if you look at the left-hand side of the page here, and you might want to pause the video at any given time to actually read some of these names. But there is a list on the left-hand side of the page of all the boxing journalists and presenters and pundits and some trainers and what have you, of their unofficial scorecards for the Pacquiao-Bradley fight. Out of 121 people, only 3 of them had Tim Bradley winning. Only 3. When the consensus among the boxing fraternity, when it comes to the journalists and reporters and all that kind of stuff, the presenters, when the consensus is that overwhelming, 121 people and only 3 had Bradley winning, when the consensus is that overwhelming, then it was clearly a robbery. Now contrast that with the Ward-Kovalev fight. First of all, let's look at the CompuBox numbers for Ward-Kovalev. In Pacquiao-Bradley 1, there was a difference of 100 punches. In Ward-Kovalev, there was only a difference of 10 punches landed over 12 rounds. Kovalev landed a total of 126 punches in the fight, and Ward landed a total of 116. And as you can see, the second round accounts for the majority of that difference. In the second round, Kovalev landed 16 punches and Andre Ward only landed 3 because that's the round that he got dropped in. So he was in survival mode for a large portion of that round, and he wasn't thinking about offense. He was thinking about trying to get through the round without getting dropped again or knocked out. But apart from that round, the vast majority of the other rounds in the fight were close. The vast majority of the other rounds, there was just a couple of punches in it. And you have to remember that judges are not conferring with CompuBox after the end of every round. They're not giving their scores and then saying, actually, let me talk to CompuBox first to make sure I'm not giving it to the guy who scored less punches than the other guy. They're not doing that. They're just going by what their eyes tell them. So there will be certain rounds where they give the round to the guy who actually landed less punches if they think his punches were better quality. On occasion, that may happen. Yeah, they're certainly not conferring with CompuBox at the end of every round. Maybe you think that they should. Maybe you think that they shouldn't trust their eyes and they should go with 3 men pushing buttons instead. Right? And obviously, like I say, the judges are taking into account punches landed and how clean the punches were, how effective they were, so on and so forth. So anyway, overall, only 10 punch difference in the entire fight, and most of that difference occurred in the second round. And again, these are just rough estimates. I mean, I think it's a fairly decent reflection on the number of punches that were landed. But as I mentioned previously, there's human error. Sometimes the CompuBox guys are going to call punches that did land incorrectly, and sometimes they're going to call punches that didn't land incorrectly. But as you can see, only a 10 punch difference over the course of 12 rounds is very, very marginal. Compare that to Pacquiao-Bradley, where there was a massive difference in the number of punches landed. This is why the Bradley-Pacquiao first fight was a robbery, and I called it a robbery. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that a fight is not a robbery when it is a robbery. That's not what I do. Yeah, when a fight is a robbery, I call it as it is. Simple. And just to finish up here, I showed you that very, very long list of journalists who gave their unofficial scorecards for Pacquiao Bradley. And out of 121, only 3 of them had Bradley winning. That was a consensus overwhelmingly in favor of Manny Pacquiao. On screen right now, you can see, and this is just a quick list, and I'm sure there's a lot more names than this. And as you can see on screen, there's already far more people in this short list that's been put together. There's already far more people in this list who had Andre Ward winning the fight than there was in the list of people who had who gave their scorecards for the Pacquiao-Bradley first fight, who had Bradley winning. It's not even close in terms of the consensus. Just look at the names here. People like Adam Smith, Matthew Macklin, George Willis, Eddie Hearn, Radio Raheem, James Smith, otherwise known as Smitty, Paulie Malignaggi, Paul Smith, Lyle Fitzsimmons from Boxing Scene, Adam Abramovitz, Dylan Hernandez, so on and so forth. Those are the people, just some of the people, and a lot of those names are big names, prominent names, who had Andre Ward winning the fight. Then you've got people who scored it a draw, like Roy Jones, Tony Bellew, Johnny Nelson, Max Kellerman. These are big names. Now, Max Kellerman didn't exactly say he scored it a draw, but he said it could have gone either way. Roy Jones said it could have been a draw, or maybe Kovalev took it by, a small margin. Then you've got people at the bottom of the list there who had Kovalev winning, but they said it was close, or they said it was not a robbery. And among that list there are Jesse Vargas, Kugan Cassius, Josh Katowitz from Forbes magazine, Brian Graham from the Guardian newspaper in the UK. A lot of big names on this list. Not one of the people on that list said the fight was a robbery. And these are neutral people, mind. These are not people that are trainers of Andre Ward or team members or anything like that. These are neutral people. And yet none of the people on this list, a lot of prominent names, none of them said it was a robbery. Most of them on the list thought that Andre Ward won. Now, obviously, there's also a list of journalists and boxers and boxing people who thought that Sergey Kovalev won this fight. But the point is that the boxing fraternity is much more divided on who won the Ward-Kovalev fight than they are on who won the first fight between Pacquiao and Bradley. The journalistic consensus for that first Pacquiao-Bradley fight was hardly split at all. It was like 3 people out of well over 100 who thought Bradley won. That's not really split at all, is it? There's a couple of anomalies in there, that's it. Whereas with Ward-Kovalev, no, there is a hell of a lot of people, neutral people within the boxing fraternity who felt that Ward won the fight. So when it's that split, that again shows you that this was not a robbery. How could it be when it's that split? CompuBox corroborated what my eyes saw, that it was a close fight and most of the rounds were very close. There was very little to split them in most of the rounds. And also the consensus view of the journalists and pundits also confirms what my eyes told me. Now, those emotional, irrational, agenda-driven people, what are they going to say about this list here? What do you have to say about it? Are you going to tell me that Andre Ward had all these people paid off before the fight, as well as him having what the judges paid off? He also had all these independent, or at least independent of him, all these neutral people, these prominent people, but he had them all paid off to give their unofficial scorecards in his favor, or to say that the fight was not a robbery and it was close. Did he really have all these people paid off? Is that where you're trying to take this now? He's going to go to that extreme, or his people? Come on. Let's get real here, people. The reality is the CompuBox, the general consensus in terms of the way people scored the fight was that it was close. Another person is Robert Garcia, the trainer. There's a video of him on one of the boxing YouTube channels. He was in the crowd. His immediate reaction was, wow, it was a close fight. I had Kovalev winning, but it was close. And the two guys that he was with had Ward winning. What was Robert Garcia and his two friends also paid off? To say that it wasn't a robbery and that it was close and, you know, the two guys had Ward winning, Garcia had Kovalev winning, but it was close. Was he paid off to say that? Does he have an agenda? I mean, do all these people on the list have an agenda against Kovalev? Really? All these unconnected people? Well, some of them are connected, most of them are not. These people all have an agenda, yeah? Okay. Who's rational and who's not rational here? It was a close fight. It went to Ward on a close decision. End of. No robbery to be seen. Pacquiao Bradley won. Definitely a robbery. Everything corroborates the fact it was a robbery. The CompuBox numbers reflect it. The journalistic consensus reflects it. But that's not the case with Ward Kovalev. Sorry, guys, but it's not. Sorry to disappoint you. Sorry to make you cry. And I do like making some of you guys cry. Your tears are delicious. But it is what it is. So anyway, I'm going to move on from this now. And I'll probably pick this back up when the rematch gets signed. If it gets signed, we'll see what happens. You know how the crazy world of boxing is. If Andre Ward decides to duck the rematch, of course, as always, I will stay objective as I always do. No fighter is below praise. No fighter is above criticism on my channel. Simple as that. So, yeah, that's that. And, yeah, we'll pick this back up when the rematch gets signed. It's your boy Hatman, I'm out.